You wake up tomorrow. Your phone is silent. No messages. No opportunities. No one checking on you. Your bank account, nearly empty. Your network, non-existent. Your family, either absent, indifferent, or actively hoping you fail so they can say, "I told you so." At your funeral of dreams, you have nothing. And here's the part that will disturb you most. This is not a hypothetical. For most of you watching this is your reality. You've simply been numbing yourself with the delusion that things will get better, or that someone will notice your potential. They won't. Welcome to the most dangerous video you'll watch this year. I'm about to reveal why your isolation isn't your weakness, it's your only weapon. And why every minute you spend waiting for support, for validation, for someone to give you a chance, is a minute you're volunteering for your own execution. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513 while in exile, broke, tortured, and abandoned by every power structure that once used him. He had watched men with everything, armies, wealth, noble blood, lose it all, and he had watched men with nothing conquer Italy. The difference wasn't support. It was understanding a truth so brutal that 5 centuries later, it's still banned from polite conversation. Dependency is death. And you're dependent on things that will never come. Let me show you how deep this sickness goes. There's a mechanism operating in your mind right now, a trap so elegant, so invisible, that you've probably never questioned it. It whispers, once I get the right mentor, once I build my network, once someone believes in me, once I have the capital, then you'll make your move. This voice is not caution, it's not prudence. It's a parasite. And it's feeding on your agency while you mistake its presence for wisdom. Let me tell you about a man named Francesco Sforza. 1401, born a bastard to a mercenary captain, no inheritance rights, no noble name, no education in the courts. In Renaissance Italy, a world where your family name determined whether you ate at the table or under it, Francesco had less than 0. He had negative support. His own father's legitimate children wanted him dead. The nobility viewed him as contaminated blood. The church considered him living proof of sin. By every measure of that society, Francesco Sforza should have died in a ditch, unmourned and unnamed. By 1450, he was the Duke of Milan, one of the 5 great powers of Italy, controlling one of the wealthiest cities in Europe, feared by kings. What happened in those 49 years? Did he wait for support? Did he network his way into opportunity? Did he attend Renaissance LinkedIn seminars on building your brand as a bastard? No, he understood what you're about to learn. Society is not designed to elevate you. It's designed to keep you exactly where you are. The entire structure, the mentorship mythology, the networking gospel, the meritocracy fairy tale exists to make you wait, to make you compliant, to make you dependent. Because dependent people are controllable people. Francesco Sforza looked at this system and made a calculation that would have horrified every motivational speaker in history. He assumed everyone was against him, not as paranoia, as strategy. And this assumption freed him to act in ways the supported never could. When you believe support is coming, you modify your behavior. You soften your edges. You make yourself palatable to the imaginary benefactor you're hoping will discover you. You become a performance of what you think they want to see. This is what I call the waiting death, and it's killing more dreams than failure ever could. Because at least failure is data, failure teaches, failure refines. But waiting? Waiting teaches you nothing except how to wait better. Francesco Sforza didn't wait. At 15, he joined his father's mercenary company, not in some privileged officer position, but as a common soldier. He learned warfare in the mud and blood. He watched his father play the Italian city-states against each other, selling military service to the highest bidder. And he learned the most important lesson of his life. Loyalty is a transaction. The cities that hired his father didn't do it out of respect or admiration. They did it because they needed him. The moment they didn't, the contracts ended, the promises evaporated. Support, young Francesco realized, was just another word for temporary usefulness. So when his father died and Francesco inherited the company, he didn't try to build relationships. He didn't seek mentors among the nobility. He didn't wait for the right opportunity. He made himself indispensable. Not likable, not impressive, not promising. Indispensable. Here's where most of you are making your fatal error. You're trying to be good enough to deserve support. You're polishing your resume, perfecting your pitch, waiting to be ready. You think meritocracy is real. Let me destroy that illusion right now. Meritocracy is a control narrative. It's a story the successful tell the unsuccessful to keep them passive. Just work hard, just be talented, just be patient, and you'll be rewarded. It's a beautiful lie, and you believe it because the alternative is terrifying. That the world doesn't care about your merit, that talent without power is just expensive weakness, that working hard in the wrong direction is indistinguishable from doing nothing. Francesco Sforza understood this at a cellular level. When Milan's Duke Filippo Maria Visconti needed military power, Francesco didn't send him a resume. He didn't ask for an informational interview. He won battles that made ignoring him impossible. He conquered cities that made him unavoidable. He created situations where the Duke had exactly two choices: employ Francesco Sforza or lose everything. That is how you succeed with zero support. You don't ask for a seat at the table, you become the table. Now I need you to do something uncomfortable. I need you to assess with brutal honesty your current position, not the story you tell yourself, not the potential you believe you have. Your actual position. The isolation inventory. Close your eyes. If you disappeared tomorrow, who would notice within 24 hours? If you needed $10,000 by Friday, or you'd lose everything, who could you call? If you needed a job that pays your bills, how many people could open that door with a single phone call? If you have an idea that could change your industry, who has the power to make it real and would take your meeting? For most of you, these answers are devastating. 0, maybe 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky. You are alone, and every Instagram post about building your tribe and finding your people has been selling you a fantasy while you sink deeper into irrelevance. But here's the reframe that changes everything. Your isolation is not your weakness, it's your laboratory. When Francesco Sforza was building his power, he had no one to impress, no board to report to, no investors to placate, no mentor whose approval he needed. This gave him something the supported never have: strategic freedom. He could be ruthless without reputation damage. He had no reputation to protect. He could experiment with tactics the respectable commanders would never risk. He could break alliances, shift loyalties, and reinvent his position because he wasn't trapped in a web of obligations. The supported are imprisoned by their support. Every favor accepted is a chain. Every mentor is a potential leash. Every investor is a voice in your head, moderating your instincts. You, right now, have none of these chains. You are dangerous precisely because you have nothing to lose, but only if you understand how to weaponize it. Let me give you the foundational laws that will transform your isolation from liability into arsenal. These are not motivational principles, these are operational protocols extracted from Machiavelli's observations of power. Treat them as such. Law 1. Appear weaker than you are. This will contradict everything the personal branding industrial complex has taught you. They tell you to show your value, to demonstrate your expertise, to let people know what you're capable of. This is how you get used and discarded. Francesco Sforza, in his early campaigns, deliberately underperformed in battles that didn't matter. He let other condottieri, other mercenary captains, take the glory for minor victories. Why? Because glory attracts attention. And attention, before you're ready, attracts destruction. The established powers of Italy weren't looking for rising stars to mentor, they were looking for threats to eliminate. By appearing less capable than he was, Francesco moved beneath the threat radar. Other mercenary captains became targets. They were assassinated, betrayed, destroyed by the very city-states that once celebrated them. Francesco kept winning, but quietly. He built his company, trained his men, developed tactics, accumulated small victories that compounded into undeniable capability. And by the time the powers realized how dangerous he'd become, it was too late. He was indispensable. You, right now, are probably doing the opposite. You're posting about your journey, announcing your goals, sharing your progress. Every post is a signal flare telling the world, here's what I'm building, here's where I'm vulnerable, here's how to stop me. Stop. Build in silence. Let them discover your power only when it's too late to prevent it. Law 2. Never reveal your full intentions. Machiavelli observed that the moment people understand what you're truly after, they organize against you. Not because they're evil, because they're rational. Your success, in most cases, requires someone else's displacement. A position they hold, resources they control, status they enjoy. The second they see you coming for it, they activate their defenses. Francesco Sforza won in Milan. Not to serve Milan, to rule it. But he never said this, not once. Instead, he positioned himself as the Duke's loyal servant, his most reliable defender, the one man who could protect Milan from the Republic of Venice, from Florence, from the chaos of Italian politics. He married the Duke's illegitimate daughter, Bianca Maria, not out of love, but to bind himself to the Visconti bloodline, to make himself family. Every move looked like loyalty. Every action appeared to strengthen the Duke's position. And when the Duke died in 1447 without a male heir, Milan collapsed into chaos. The Ambrosian Republic formed, a desperate attempt at self-governance that lasted exactly 3 years. 3 years of instability, of weakness, of begging for someone, anyone, to restore order. And there was Francesco Sforza, not as a conqueror, as a savior. He didn't take Milan, Milan surrendered to him. This is the power of concealed intention. You don't announce you're going to disrupt an industry. You don't declare you're coming for the throne. You become necessary. You solve problems. You make yourself the obvious solution. And when the moment comes, they hand you power, because the alternative is collapse. Here is what they don't tell you. Isolation is not a disadvantage. It is selection pressure. When you have no support system, no safety net, no mentors whispering strategies in your ear, your brain enters a different mode of operation. Psychologists call it threat-induced cognition. Machiavelli called it virtue. I call it the activation. Your mind, when truly alone, stops performing for others. It stops seeking approval. It stops calibrating every decision against the imagined judgment of parents, peers, mentors, society. The performance ends. The calculation begins. This is not metaphor, this is neuroscience. When the prefrontal cortex recognizes genuine isolation, no tribal protection, no resource backup, it redirects energy from social processing to strategic processing. You stop asking, what will they think? You start asking, what will work? Most people never experience this. They have just enough support to stay comfortable, just enough validation to keep performing, just enough safety to avoid the activation. They live their entire lives in the waiting room of their own potential. You, right now with zero support, you're not disadvantaged, you're unshackled. Machiavelli wrote extensively about fortresses, physical strongholds princes would build to protect against threats. But he was ambivalent about them, because a fortress can become a prison. The real fortress, the one that cannot be sieged or starved or betrayed from within, is psychological. Let me build it for you now. Stone 1. Elimination of validation dependency. Every time you check for approval from family, from friends, from strangers on the internet, you are opening a gate in your fortress. You are allowing external forces to determine your internal state. This is the original sin of the unsupported. You think, if only someone believed in me, I could act. No. Reverse the equation. Because no one believes in me, I must act, and my results will force their belief. Validation is a consequence of power, never a prerequisite. The moment you internalize this, you become unmanageable, uncontrollable, dangerous. Stone 2. Strategic paranoia as operating system. There is a difference between fear and paranoia. Fear is emotional, it paralyzes. Paranoia is tactical, it prepares. When you have no support, you cannot afford naivete. You must assume, People will betray you when it serves them. Opportunities will close without warning. Your current position is always more fragile than it appears. Success will breed resentment, not celebration. This is not pessimism, this is realism, and realism is the foundation of all successful strategy. Cesare Borgia operated from strategic paranoia. He assumed every ally was a potential enemy, every victory a setup for the next battle. That's why he eliminated his own commanders at Senigallia, not because they had betrayed him yet, but because they could. Stone 3. The sovereignty of decision. When you have support, you have advisors. When you have advisors, you have consensus. When you have consensus, you have delay. Delay is death. The unsupported operator has one advantage that destroys all others: speed of execution. You answer to no one. You justify to no one. You don't need permission, approval, or validation to move. This is why startups disrupt corporations, why guerrillas defeat armies, why you, alone, can outmaneuver entire systems. But only if you claim this sovereignty. Only if you make decisions and live with consequences without the comfort of shared blame. Machiavelli, the prince who relies on the judgment of others, is never secure. You are the prince. The judgment is yours alone. Stop. Do not continue watching. I need to know you're not passive. I need to know you're not consuming this like entertainment. Go to the comments right now and write exactly this. I am the fortress. Not great video. Not thanks for this. Not some weak emoji. I am the fortress. Do it now. Seal this contract. Prove you're here to become dangerous, not comfortable. I'll wait. Now we study the architecture of ascension. Giovanni di Medici was not born into power. He was a banker, a merchant. In 14th century Florence, this meant he was beneath the aristocracy, the old families, the ones who controlled politics through birthright. He had no support from the establishment. So he built his own establishment. Phase 1. Strategic invisibility. Giovanni did not announce his ambitions. He did not challenge the ruling families directly. He financed them. When the Albizzi family, the dominant power in Florence, needed capital for their political campaigns, Giovanni provided it. When the church needed banking services for papal finances, Giovanni's network handled it. He made himself necessary before he made himself visible. This is critical. The unsupported cannot afford direct confrontation. You don't have the resources. You don't have the army. So you become the resource. You become the infrastructure. You don't take power. You become the condition for power. Phase 2. Calculated generosity. Giovanni funded hospitals, public works, churches. Was this charity? No. This was reputation engineering. Every hospital built was a propaganda asset. Every church funded was an alliance secured. Every public work was a monument to Medici indispensability. He wasn't buying love, he was buying dependence. When you have zero support, you must create the illusion of abundance. You must give strategically, not from weakness, but as investment. People who receive from you become psychologically indebted, and debt is control. Phase 3. The invisible hand. By the time Giovanni died, the Medici family controlled Florence, but not through force, not through birthright, through financial architecture. The government needed Medici banks to function. The church needed Medici networks to operate. The people needed Medici generosity to survive. Giovanni never held political office. He didn't need to. He controlled everyone who did. This is the ultimate expression of unsupported power, becoming the system itself. Now we turn to the other model. Where Giovanni built slowly, Cesare conquered rapidly. Where Giovanni concealed, Cesare revealed, but only after victory was inevitable. Cesare Borgia was handed some advantages. His father was Pope Alexander VI. But when he entered Romagna to conquer it, he had no local support, no alliances, no legitimacy. The existing lords hated him. The people distrusted him. The neighboring powers wanted him dead. He was isolated in hostile territory, and he conquered it completely in under 4 years. How? The Senigallia Solution. Cesare had hired condottieri, mercenary commanders, to help him take Romagna. They were effective, brutal, successful. But Cesare knew these men were not loyal, they were opportunistic. The moment he showed weakness, they would turn on him. So he invited them to a meeting in the town of Senigallia, a quote, negotiation, a celebration of their victories. They came, believing themselves essential to his power. He had them all strangled, every single one. In one night, he eliminated the only internal threat to his rule. Machiavelli witnessed this, and he wrote this was a masterpiece of deception. Not because it was cruel, though it was, but because it was complete. Cesare didn't leave loose ends. He didn't show mercy hoping for future loyalty. He didn't hesitate out of sentiment. He identified the threat, created the trap, and executed without remorse. This is the psychology of the unsupported. You cannot afford half measures. When you have no safety net, no backup, no second chances, you must finish what you start. Incomplete victories become future defeats. We must address the poison now. The self-help industrial complex has sold you a lie. They told you, believe in yourself and you'll succeed. Visualize your goals, speak them into existence, affirm your greatness daily. And you did. And nothing changed. Here's why. Affirmations trigger dopamine release without requiring action. Your brain receives the reward, the feeling of progress, simply from saying the words, I am successful. I am powerful. I am unstoppable. Your neurochemistry cannot distinguish between the statement and the reality. So you get the satisfaction of success without the work of success. This is not motivation, this is sedation. The self-help industry knows this. They profit from your stagnation. Every course, every seminar, every motivational video gives you just enough dopamine to feel like you're improving, while keeping you dependent on the next course, the next seminar, the next video. You are not their customer, you are their subscription. Machiavelli would have despised this. He wrote The Prince not to make people feel powerful, but to make them become powerful. And power is not affirmed, it is taken. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. They would visualize, in detail, everything that could go wrong, not to induce fear, but to eliminate it. When you have mentally rehearsed failure, betrayal, loss, these things lose their power over you. You are not surprised, you are not paralyzed, you are prepared. Machiavelli operated from the same principle. Assume hostility, expect betrayal, plan for collapse. Not because the world is always hostile, but because preparation for hostility makes you undefeatable. If you assume everyone will support you, one betrayal destroys you. If you assume no one will support you, every alliance is a bonus, every loyalty a gift. You cannot be disappointed. You cannot be blindsided. You are the fortress. So here's your new practice. Every morning, instead of affirmations, ask, what could destroy me today? Who might betray me? What am I depending on that could vanish? Then, build contingencies. This is not pessimism, this is anti-fragility. You become stronger from chaos because you've already internalized it. You are no longer learning how to survive without support. You are learning how to thrive because of your lack of support. This is the psychological shift that changes everything. The victim says, no one helps me. The operator says, no one controls me. You have built the fortress. You have studied the blueprints, Medici's slow accumulation, Borgia's rapid elimination. You have rejected the affirmation trap and embraced strategic paranoia. Now we move to application. Now we move to conquest. Part 3 will give you the exact laws, the manipulation tactics, the frameworks for extracting resources, controlling narratives, and eliminating obstacles. But you must arrive there with the right psychology, not hopeful, not motivated, sovereign. The prince does not ask for support. The prince becomes the condition for others, survival. And when you are necessary, you are untouchable. You have broken the chains of dependency. You have rejected the opiate of affirmation. You have built the internal fortress. Now comes the question that separates the student from the master. How do you ascend when the system is designed to keep you down? The answer is not inspiration. It is not networking. It is not putting yourself out there. The answer is strategic violence. Not physical, not illegal, psychological. You will learn to manipulate the environment with such precision that others believe they are acting of their own volition, when in reality, they are instruments of your design. This is not theory. This is the technology of power. And it begins with 5 laws that Machiavelli whispered to princes, but never wrote down. Law 5. Control the narrative before it controls you. Listen carefully. You do not have institutional backing. You do not have a legacy name. You do not have capital. But you have something more powerful, the ability to define reality for those around you. Every interaction is a battlefield of perception. Every conversation is a negotiation of status. Every silence is a statement. And most people, they are asleep. They accept the first frame. They believe the loudest voice. They follow the most confident narrative. This is your opening. The technique. When you enter any environment, a job, a project, a relationship, you do not ask what role you will play. You assign roles. You do this through preemptive framing. Describe the situation before others can. This project is clearly failing because of X. Now you are the diagnostician, not the participant. Strategic ambiguity. Never fully explain yourself. Let others fill the gaps with their own projections. Ambiguity creates mystique. Mystique creates authority. Controlled vulnerability. Reveal a calculated weakness to appear human, trustworthy. Then never reveal another. They will believe they know you. They will be wrong. The Medici principle. When Giovanni de' Medici entered Florence's banking world, he was nobody. No aristocratic blood, no political office. But he controlled one thing: information. He knew who owed whom. He knew which families were overextended. He knew which nobles were desperate. And he never revealed the full picture. Instead, he let each party believe they were using him, when in reality, he was orchestrating a symphony of mutual dependence. Within 2 generations, the Medici were kingmakers. Not through force, through narrative control. You do not need an army when you control what people believe about themselves. Law 6. Use others, resources without asking permission. The weak ask for help. The strong create situations where help is offered. The distinction. When you ask, you create debt. When they offer, you create gratitude in them. This inversion is everything. The mechanism. You do not take resources directly. You create conditions where others invest in you because it serves their ego, their status, their narrative. Example. You need funding for a project. The amateur approach. Can you invest in my idea? Result. Supplication, weakness, rejection. The Machiavellian approach. You identify someone with resources and a fragile ego. You study their public statements, their insecurities, their need to be seen as visionary. Then you present your project as their idea that you're merely executing. I was thinking about what you said last month about it inspired an approach I'm testing. Early results are promising, but I'm keeping it quiet until it's proven. Thought you'd want to know first. Now they are curious. Now they are invested. Now they want to be associated with your success. You have not asked for anything, but they will offer. And when they do, you accept with reluctance, as if you are doing them the favor. Cesare Borgia's application. When Borgia needed to conquer the Romagna, he did not have his father's full papal treasury at his disposal, so he used French resources. He convinced Louis XII that a strong Borgia presence in central Italy would check Venetian expansion, which served French interests. Louis provided troops. Borgia conquered cities. Then Borgia systematically eliminated French influence in those same cities. The French had funded their own obsolescence. Your application. Identify who has what you need. Determine their psychological need. Position your goal as the solution to their need. Let them believe they're using you. Extract maximum value while appearing grateful. Sever the relationship before they realize the imbalance. This is not collaboration. This is resource extraction with a smile. Law 7. Eliminate incrementally, never dramatically. You will have obstacles, people who block your path, systems that resist your rise, competitors who threaten your position. The amateur eliminates them loudly. The master eliminates them invisibly. The principle, dramatic removal, creates martyrs, enemies, and attention. Incremental removal creates forgetting. The method, you do not attack directly, you erode. You do not accuse, you create doubt. You do not fire, you make their position untenable. Tactical sequence 1. Isolate. Gradually reduce their access to key relationships, information, opportunities. Do this through restructuring, efficiency, new priorities. Never mention their name. 2. Redirect. Shift credit for their work to others. Publicly thank team members around them. Accidentally omit them from recognition. Repeat until their contributions are invisible. 3. Undermine. Ask questions that expose their weaknesses in public settings. I'm curious, what's the backup plan if this approach doesn't work? Frame it as intellectual curiosity, not attack. 4. Replace. Slowly introduce alternatives, new people, new processes, new systems that make them redundant. By the time they notice, it's too late. 5. Exit. When they finally leave, express surprise and mild disappointment. I had no idea they were unhappy. We'll miss them. The Senigallia standard. When Cesare Borgia faced rebellious condottieri who threatened his rule, he did not march against them. He invited them to negotiate. He appeared conciliatory, reasonable, willing to compromise. They arrived at Senigallia, believing they had leverage. He had them strangled that night. But here's the mastery. He had spent months before this meeting, isolating them from each other, spreading rumors of individual betrayals, creating paranoia within their ranks. By the time they died, their own men were relieved. No martyrs, no rebellion, no sympathy, just silence. Your application: never confront obstacles directly. Create conditions where they eliminate themselves. Use time as a weapon. Erosion is invisible. When they fall, appear surprised and compassionate. Ensure no one remembers them as victims. The goal is not victory. The goal is unopposed ascension. Law 8. Never appear too perfect. This is the law that keeps you alive. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. People do not destroy you for your weaknesses. They destroy you for your perfection. Envy is more dangerous than hatred. Admiration curdles into resentment faster than respect into contempt. And when you rise without support, you become a threat to everyone who needed support to rise. They will not tolerate your existence, unless you give them permission. The strategy: you must display calculated imperfection. Not real weakness, never that. But safe flaws that make you relatable without making you vulnerable. Examples: the brilliant strategist who is terrible with names. The wealthy entrepreneur who can't cook to save his life. The powerful executive who gets too emotional about his dog. These are humanizing without being weakening. They create affection without creating opportunity for attack. The mechanism: when you reveal a harmless flaw, you 1. Disarm envy. He's not perfect after all. 2. Create false intimacy. He trusted me with this vulnerability. 3. Misdirect attention. While they focus on your weakness, they miss your actual operations. Machiavelli's own application. Machiavelli himself was a master of this. In The Prince, he occasionally writes as if he is naive, uncertain, merely observing rather than prescribing. Perhaps I am wrong, but it seems to me this false humility made the book publishable. Had he written with full arrogance, he would have been executed immediately. Instead, he survived, and his ideas conquered the world. Your application: identify a flaw that is endearing but irrelevant to your power. Display it publicly and consistently. Never reveal actual vulnerabilities. Use this openness to deflect deeper scrutiny. Watch as people underestimate you while claiming to know you. The perfect prince is dead within a year. The flawed prince rules for decades. You began alone, completely unsupported. You have now learned to build power from nothing, to control perception, to extract resources, to eliminate obstacles, to survive success. But here is the final secret. You do not remain alone. You build your own support system, but on your terms, not through dependency, through necessity. The transition. Phase 1. You needed nothing from anyone. You built in isolation. Phase 2. You became valuable. People began orbiting you. Phase 3. You selected who could remain in your orbit. You created your own network, but one where you are the center, not a node. This is the Medici model perfected. They began as outsiders. They became the axis around which Florence rotated, and when you become necessary to enough people, you become untouchable. The warning, but never forget where you came from. Never become dependent on your own system. The moment you need your supporters is the moment you become vulnerable again. Maintain the psychology of isolation even in abundance. Stay dangerous. Stay sovereign. Machiavelli's final lesson. In chapter 26 of The Prince, Machiavelli writes to Lorenzo de' Medici, "Where there is willingness, there is a way." But he does not mean hope. He means will, not motivation, not inspiration. Will. The cold, calculating, relentless force that bends reality through strategic action. You have that will, or you would not have made it this far. Let me tell you what happens next. You will apply these laws. You will rise. And people will ask you, "How did you do it?" You will smile. You will say something humble. And you will never tell them the truth. Because the truth is this. You succeeded because you had no support. You succeeded because no one believed in you. You succeeded because you were forced to become necessary rather than hoping to be helped. And now? Now you are the one others seek support from. Now you are the patron, the connection, the opportunity. And you will remember what it felt like to be on the outside. You will remember the cold. And you will decide, do I extend the ladder or do I pull it up? Machiavelli's answer. Extend it to those who remind you of yourself. Those with will, with hunger, with strategic silence. But never to those who ask. Only to those who take. Because here is the final truth. The world is not divided between the supported and the unsupported. It is divided between the sovereign and the subject. Between the prince and the pawn. Between those who create conditions and those who accept them. You now have the knowledge. The question is, do you have the will? This is where we separate. Everything you have just learned is real, it works, it has worked for centuries. But it is only the foundation. The 48 laws applied to modern corporate warfare. Monthly case studies of current power plays, decoded through Machiavellian analysis. Access to a vetted community of operators who think like you, who see the game, who play to win. No motivational speakers, no life coaches, no weakness. Just strategy, just power, just results. But here's the test. If you are still waiting for permission, you are not ready. If you are still seeking validation, you have learned nothing. If you need me to convince you, you are still prey. The subscription is not for everyone. It is for the few who understand that support is a cage and mastery is a weapon. If you are tired of being prey, subscribe. Join the few who understand. The button is below. I will not ask again. The prince does not beg. The prince selects. Are you selected? Or are you still waiting to be chosen? Drop a comment. Subscribe. I am